All right, everybody, welcome. It is a new year, Wednesday, January the 8th of 2025, and this is the Profitable Real Estate Agent Plan, and we are continuing on in our program. And unfortunately, because of the holidays, we had a little break there. So we pick up on week 5. But let me just reiterate that in the previous weeks, the subjects have been we've covered. Actually, I will put this itinerary while I refer to it, because I'm not going to keep switching screens back and forth on you here before I get started. So look in the chat and I will give you the itinerary for the entire class. So in the case that it's the first time you come here, you will be able to have this itinerary. Okay. So it's a live link over there. Click on that link. That is where we are. But in the first 4 weeks, our subjects have included anything that drives you to build a business that's profitable. It has to start off with you getting your mindset right and seeing yourself as this profitable agent running a business. That was week 1. Week 2 was then setting a very simple gross commission goal before splits and all that good stuff, and how we did that very simply put. That was week 2. Week 3 was the development of a unique selling proposition, a true approach to defining yourself as different. And week 4 was then defining the ideal customer to which you will make that offer. So that finally leads to what a lot of you are probably always wondering. Well, where are the leads? The leads, right? This industry is famous, including in a movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, where, the leads. And the truth is, leads are hiding in plain sight. So tonight, what I'm going to go through is the proof that that is actually what's happening, that leads are hiding in plain sight. And I will tell you how I, back now probably 5 or 6 years ago, well into my career. I mean, we're talking 19, 20 years into my career, when I realized listing leads especially were hiding in plain sight. So I want to go through that tonight, and we'll go through this slideshow here. So again, if it's the first time on, it's kind of a lecture first 30 minutes. Then I'm happy to answer questions about anything in your business, anything in this course. You're here live. I appreciate that. It's hard to get people's attention these days. So when you come live, you can ask me questions. And if you're a little shy because you don't know the group, just send it in the chat, right? I'll look for the questions in the chat and I will answer them. Otherwise, however long it takes me to get through the materials, we will follow through. Okay. So I'm going to start the slideshow. If you cannot hear me, then check your speakers on, let me just double check who's here. Yeah, we got about 10 people on so far. So if you cannot hear me, then you need to check your speakers on, you probably can't hear this, right? You have to realize you're muted, but I am not, okay? So if there's any issues hearing me or whatever, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as I go along, but during the lecture portion, it's a little difficult. All right, away we go. Enough of that. Let's start off this slideshow. And are leads hiding in plain sight is tonight's subject. Now, of course, developing an answer to that is essential. So we're going to go through our worksheet where we pop up the fill in the blanks. Again, I always recommend one of the best ways to consume this is to consume it by writing things down. When you hear something that's sort of a light bulb moment, I call it capturing fireflies in the jar. The light bulb comes on. It's an idea that you didn't think about or see before. Write it down. So it's important. And I always have close by me some sort of a notebook or a legal pad. In this case, I always have both next to me, in a pencil, so that if something comes to mind and it resurfaces, especially, and I've had that idea before, I try to capture it in the jar so I can go back and deal with it. Okay. All right. So when it comes to finding leads, where should you start looking? Now, I get this question all the time, and we are in heavy recruiting season right now, where Kathy's getting us all sorts of people that are interested in becoming real estate agents. A lot of them have been in business. In fact, I interviewed 3 wonderful gals last week on the same day, it turned out, and they all had wonderful business backgrounds. But they all are wondering, where do you start in this business? And the default mechanism in the brain is to say, well, you should start looking for leads, right? So let's talk about how to orient yourself correctly, because I wish somebody had really drilled this into my head first. And it's a common theme throughout this course, but listing leads are primary, and buyer leads are a good secondary source of potential customers. Now, of course, you're probably saying to yourself, but I'm going to do business wherever I can get it. And I understand that. And I'm empathetic to that because as I progressed early on in my career, I felt the same way. And in fact, I didn't really care where I went for the business, how much it was worth. I was all about transactions. But that's not a strategic approach. That's a tactical approach to trying to make some money and make it work. And I will promise you, it is not a plan or part of a plan to become a profitable real estate agent who can sustain business over many years. And you're talking to one that has sustained his living in this business for 25 years. So I know what I'm talking about, and I've made plenty of mistakes, and I don't want you to make them. Don't just rush to take any kind of leads you can. And especially if you haven't already joined a brokerage and you're thinking about joining a brokerage, the promise of leads is absolutely hazardous to your profitability, because the only place that a brokerage can offer leads is typically through the internet, right? And I'm not saying everybody, because in my company, if somebody's been trained up, we have some listing leads that we share with some of our agents who come here, and a couple of them on here tonight. They'll learn this system as we teach it here, even for free and in the open. They come and they learn more the how to at Griffin, and then they become qualified to give some leads to, because we know they're following our scripts. We know they're making our offer. We know they're following up that way, right? We know that they're following the system. So we do have some listing leads, but we don't make that promise to anyone when they join us. If they show that diligence and we have overflow as the core company, then we will share them, but they don't need us. They need to know that listings are out there. We'll get into that in a second. But I want you to understand this is something that comes up all the time. Whether somebody comes to me for one-on-one coaching and they're high end and they're wondering where the leads come from, I say, okay, fine, but stop talking to me about buyer internet leads. They are probably some of the most difficult leads to even find a real person in. They tend to be median and below, which, you know, if you've been through this course before, it's a not profitable business model to keep doing deals that are below the median price. And even in that case, you end up having to take the commission that's being offered by somebody who's discounting the buy side commission these days. It's a disastrous model. So you have to understand why listing leads are primary and buyer leads are secondary. And I'll get into how I get buyer leads for myself these days, and the methodologies, very straightforward, right? So what are some examples of listing leads? Well, the best listing leads hiding in plain sight are expireds, probates, for sale by owners, and referral listings, right? So this industry has always offered up the expired listing. Sometimes you'll see, it's dressed up as the canceled or the withdrawn. Now be careful of temporarily withdrawn. That's usually a legitimate reason why it has come off the market with a realtor. But a lot of times the realtors will hide the term expired under canceled and withdrawns. So I'm going to loop all of those in as failed listings, but very, very good lead piles, because in that lead pile, there are still a lot of people who still have a real reason why they want to sell that property and a motivation that's still high to do so. So that becomes a very, very good pool of listings, right? The next thing is probates. The nice balance for listing leads are probate leads, because that's where somebody has passed away without a clean will describing exactly what should happen with this property. So there has to be this legal process where the property, somebody is assigned as the administrator of the estate. It goes through a process. It has to be advertised, etc. So there's a lot of fiduciary responsibility that has to be assigned before a license to sell the property is granted. That's a probate process. And that has challenges in and of itself. And I'll talk about those, because those are my two primary ways of finding listing or creating listing prospects. You don't just go straight from a lead to a client. You create a prospect in between, right? It's all just contact information, which we'll talk about when we get to the subjects of CRMs, but it's all just contact relationship management. And the disposition of that lead can change to prospect, where you go from not knowing why and their level of motivation to knowing why. Knowing their level of motivation is going to be 9 to 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 inside the next 12 months. And they are engaging you in your unique selling proposition, which was discussed two series back, right? Or two sessions back. They're engaging all that, right? So those are the examples of opportunities to create prospects. Okay. So let that sink in. For sale by owners are another. Now, as a business person, I'm choosing a hierarchy of listing lead types based on my strategic approach. Now, again, the strategic approach I use and teach you, I would like you to try to focus on the acquisition of listing leads and then the creation of listing prospects at or above, if possible, the median price in your marketplace. So clearly, once a month, you need to be checking the statistics that typically are offered through your MLS to figure out what is the median price or the middle of all the sales, and the mean price, which is typically higher than the median price, skewed up by the very high-end luxury properties. You need to know those numbers so that from a strategic standpoint, it's not just about the leads, it's about the financial qualification of the lead to help you become a profitable real estate agent, right? That's the most important thing. So expireds, for me, were the first choice because they are the easiest to identify some of those parameters. Obviously, I can identify median or above very quickly. I look at the expired, cancel, withdrawn value that they were asking, and I know whether that fits my model or not to be above the median at least, and preferably above the average, because that really accelerates profit. The next thing that I chose, because it was a balance, the expireds can feel seasonal sometimes. Sometimes there are a lot of those leads. Sometimes there are very few, especially in a white hot market. We have probably some of our Seattleites on here tonight, and those folks have seen just this incredibly, high trajectory on their marketplace over the many years that I've coached people in there, and now my partner Paul and I are there as partners. It's been this wildly accelerating marketplace whereby there have been very few expireds, but there are always expireds, because even in a hot market, people overprice and they go unsold and they scratch their head and wonder why, right? We'll get into that at a whole other level, right? But the point is, expired leads end up being some of the best pile of leads because you can identify them as potential sales that will become part of your profit, right? Probates are a good balance to those because they're not seasonal. Death is not seasonal. It doesn't care what time of year it comes, and a lot of people are unorganized, and that's why there are always people in the probate pile who have to sell the property. Now, both of those have challenges. One, on the expireds, a lot of you will think, oh, everybody calls them, and I don't want to be an ambulance chaser. Well, that's simply because you haven't been taught by me to think differently, right? The way that you think differently in both of these categories of leads, and any seller lead for that matter, how can I give away my best what to do information for free to these people? And that's what we talked about in earnest in week 3, how to create one of these unique selling proposition packages that have the information that you can give away to them that will empower them to feel good about trying to sell again, and you get rewarded for that, okay? So those two people, one, they've expired. The ones that will engage you feel really good about that, right? That you came and you gave them this information. Now, there are a lot of people that are going right back with their realtor, or they're not interested in your offer. No problem. You can't do business with every expired, probate, FSBO, etc., right? You can only do a few, but if you're focused on getting new listings over the next, now it's 51 weeks, right? 1 week down in 25, there are 51 weeks left. If you can see yourself in the weeks of the 51 left that you're working, if you can continuously talk to expireds and probates and FSBOs, whatever you choose, over that 52-week period within which you work, like you might end up working 42 of those weeks, 43 of those weeks. Well, it's 43 weeks to have conversations with these leads that are hiding in plain sight using the unique selling proposition package we talked about. That's it. That's it. If you just focused on that in 25, I'll change your business life like I did mine. Dramatically changed it, right? Because when I preach against internet buyer leads, it's because I've already experienced them. I experienced internet buyer leads when they were brand new, and there was a window of opportunity where everybody from the median and above included were going to the internet. They were allowing their information to be captured, and they were talking to realtors. Well, over time, that just kept atrophying because now every realtor in the world is pestering somebody, trying to convert them. So they stopped. And then Zillow started to give it away for free anyway. So the whole world of internet buyer leads just keeps going on this trajectory downwards, right? I know because I coach people that do it, and I just scratch my head at how poorly they're performing on an individual deal basis. And I'll repeat, when you're getting internet buyer leads, even when you convert them, they tend to be people who are below the median price. And now you're running around with a buyer, and unless you're really savvy and you've learned how to put your own fee in there, you're taking a lesser fee that's being offered. It just, like, from a business standpoint, it's frightening. Now, I'm not going to ignore buyer leads. I'm going to talk about where the better ones come from. But if it's listing leads first and you focus on expireds and probates hiding in your face, probates not so much, you have to actually pay for a service to get them, but expireds are hiding right in plain sight. And so are FSBOs. FSBOs and expireds are absolutely hiding in plain sight. Probates are there because you can buy a list of them anytime you want. So they're all readily accessible. But some FSBOs, you don't even have to pay for. Go to a for sale by owner site and just go start calling the people, right? That's about as free can be, hiding in plain sight. And again, you need a good script, you need a good offer, and you need to understand you're only going to do business with a few of them, not a lot of them. But over the 52-week span of a campaign, if you got 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is, median and above FSBOs, they'll change your life, right? So it's very important to understand they're there. Now, referral listings, you all have some sort of a sphere of influence, meaning in your world, you know people, and you probably know professional people. And if you don't, you can solicit professional people such as real estate attorneys, right? Estate planners, and you can give them the unique selling proposition package of information and say, should you have somebody who dies and needs to go through the probate process of selling, here's a package of information that I share. Oh, and by the way, I'm proactively calling these people anyway. If they don't have a lawyer, I'd be happy to refer you, right? So you go out and create those professional referrals. I'm not talking about referrals from friends and family. That can happen too, but that's more difficult because your friends and family don't know people every day of the week hiding in plain sight that are going to do business. But an attorney who's involved in probates, wills, and estates, right? They're definitely talking to people on a regular basis. So you can bring them in too. So what are some good examples of buyer leads? Well, the best buyer leads hiding in plain sight, my favorite, open house. And yes, I will talk about the internet. Some of them are there, but what does the internet mean these days? Does it mean, you're getting some engagement on Instagram or Facebook? I get cringy when I even say that because I would never go there myself, but I understand that some of you will. And again, same thing with referral leads, right? What professional person is involved with people who might need to be referred a realtor? So you can think about those referral sources that are hiding in plain sight. They're a middle person between you and the deal. Referrals always have a middleman, right? They have a middleman with their professional referrals. I want to go straight to consumer, and I want you going there first. So if you were to look at the campaigns that I use to run my business, and if you need validation, I have sold right around $70 million worth of property in the last 3 years. And I have done it primarily through expireds and over the last year probates, and most definitely open houses. I did 4 open houses last week. I will be doing 4 more open houses this weekend. Every single week that I can get in front of real buyers sitting in my median and especially above listings, it's staggering how that has exponentially grown my business. And there's nothing more exciting than to first get a listing from a listing lead like an expired, run an open house, have a person come in and buy it. There's nothing like that. It is the greatest high you will ever feel in real estate. So it's not that we're talking about throwing out certain leads. We're just asking ourselves intelligently, how can I be the most profitable per transaction? And by the way, I saw Melanie in here. I don't know if both Ellis sisters are in here, but the Ellis twins are, 25, 26 ladies, I forget, but they're doing exactly this. And right now, I don't know how it's going to work out, but they have a buyer, even though they couldn't quite put the buyer, under them as a buyer agent because they're attorneys and they didn't want it. They're still potentially going to get a commission if I can put this together, right? And that's from an open house. And they're only a month or so into the business. So when people listen, and Annabelle, when and if she comes on these calls, she was one of the greatest students early on when she was 18 years old. And now 23, she has sold and gotten listings off of open houses over $1 million several times, right? So it's not just me doing this because somehow you think I have magic. I'm just looking at the logic of where the best business is, coming up with a unique selling proposition, scripts to discuss it with people, giving it away, and having them magnetically attracted in. I just got a message from Laura that I'm going to a listing presentation because at an open house, I treated somebody with respect. I gave them a seller package of information because they talked about selling, and I just got invited in to a listing presentation. So I could go on and on and on about this phenomenon. But again, over the last 36 months, I've sold plus or minus 70 million. We're trying to finalize the numbers, but about $70 million worth of property. And my average sale has gone from prior to that period, somewhere in the 350 to 400 range to 1,071,000. All because I started focusing on the median listing lead. And it's just a strange gravitation that keeps going up the ladder, right? I just left the property today. We're going to list at 6.95. I have a current one at, 2.595. You might sound like, oh, but that's you. No. I, for 20 years, never did that business until I got strategic about how to organize the pursuit of leads. Don't tell yourself a different story like I did for 20 years. Tell yourself the right story, okay? So how can you find listing leads? Well, the best listing leads can be found by searching the multiple listing service. Like I said, hiding in plain sight for something that if you're a realtor, you pay for already. And FSBO sites, like I said, just go Google for sale by owner sites. When you go for sale by owner, you have to put yourself somewhere. You're on a site. You call a site because your perception is you need some digital exposure, right? Or by asking for referrals from past clients and, more importantly, professionals. Secondly, same thing with best buyer leads. I cannot say enough. Hosting open houses. And by the way, the concept of an open house that really gets beaten up a lot is that you're there all day and nobody comes and tire kickers come. If you listen to that, you're dead in this business. Because the whole idea, if you think about it logically for a second, we're all trying to get in front of sellers, get in front of buyers. So you can go into an open house and be in front of real buyers this weekend, right? Now you say, but I don't have a listing. Call up a bunch of agents and ask them. I had an agent from another company come to one of my open houses, just previewing this. She was with her mother. What a wonderful person, right? Skated professionally for Disney. What a fascinating conversation. She just reached out to me, and I knew what she was asking. She said, listen, it's supposed to snow and it's cold. Where would you go if you were going to do a photo shoot for luxury? I said, why don't you just borrow the listing you came in? She was blown away that I would offer it, right? But I appreciated the fact that she came to my open house. She actually, I saw, did a couple of videos of it and did an Instagram post on it. I loved it because it's what we suggest. Go ask another realtor if you can, use their listing and borrow it from some reason. She asked for photos. I would be asking to open house it, right? So that's what I would say you do if you don't have it. Now, when you come to me in my Cape Cod or Boston office, I have listings that I'm trying to get on a regular basis. I can only do so many open houses, but they're only 90 minutes long. 90 minutes, an hour and a half worth of work. It sounds like so much work, right? Well, if you did this job part-time and all you could do was open houses, 90 minutes, an hour to drive or take a break in the middle, and another 90 minutes. That adds up to 4 hours worth of work. You do it 2 days in a weekend. You got all morning to go to the gym, go for a walk, do whatever. Start the first one 10 to 11:30. A break till 12:30, done at 2:00. Tell me where you're going to go get a better part-time job that could end up over the course of 52 weeks paying you like this does. You can't. So it's extremely important for me to quadruple down. Multiple listing service offers you free expired cancels, withdrawals, and borrowing an open house or until you get your own listing gives you an opportunity to be face-to-face or verbally. You can door knock, your expireds with a package of information that's all made up with them using our scripts. So it's just, they're right there in front of you. And I think that's the most important thing. So you set up an open house system. These are pro tips I'm going to give you now, okay? You set up an open house system to secure both seller and buyer prospects. How do you do that, right? Well, what you do is you make these unique selling proposition type of packages and you put them in presentation style packages. So this is what it looks like. Actually, here's a real listing package for tomorrow. You can see they look the same. So I'm actually going into a house. I was referred by a past client to this particular house where I did open houses ad nauseum, right? But I go into an open house, and what I have here are packages that I can give to somebody who has signed in and did not put a name down for the realtor, okay? Let that sink in. Thank you so much for coming to the open house. Seller has asked that I have everybody sign in. So if you don't mind doing that, I would appreciate it, and so would they. They sit there, they're quiet, they sign in. The more quiet you are, don't talk to them while they're doing it, so they fill in all of the form, and the form says you're a realtor, right? If they put nothing, not applicable, Redfin, Zillow, something like that, okay, now a little look down, you can see that they are not encumbered in a relationship. Not that you wouldn't treat everybody well, because your primary job when you're doing an open house, whether it's yours or not, is to try to sell it as a fiduciary responsibility to the seller. However, we all know that most of the time people come, they're not going to buy that house. But the ones that don't put a realtor down are an opportunity to make an offer to, right? That's what you end up doing. So in this case, at one of my past clients, I knew they had a house to sell because they told me they did. And so they see me doing all this systematically. They understand I'm a professional. And I say, hey, listen, since you're thinking about selling your house, I know these solds might not be relevant to you, but what I've done is I've taken the time to put together a package of information. In here, there are pictures and details of properties that sold around this one, straight from MLS, just like realtors. So you can see what the money was really getting. In addition to that, there is a one-page statistical market update that gives you all the stats on the current market. And as a bonus, wink, wink, I have included a copy of my 7-step plan that I customize for clients like this. So I have created a vision for what would be possible for them as a seller if I was involved with them, or at least if they want to go to the next step, which these people do because they want me to come out. And if you have a real reason why you want to sell it very soon and you feel like your motivation is a 9 to 10, I could come out and analyze what's sold around yours to include a net sheet to show you what you'd walk away with. And I'll give you tips on what to do and what not to do to customize that plan to get to the top end of that range. It all just becomes so logical when you're helping people. But if you're doing an open house to secure sellers and buyers and turn those leads into potential prospects, you have to be prepared with your unique selling proposition. American Express had a great commercial tagline for years. American Express, don't leave home without it. Don't do an open house without it. Ever. Don't ever go to a listing presentation. Well, I two-step it. I go in there and I just kind of shine. No, you go in prepared to give them the best information that you can in that moment in time. And if you think through it with this system, that's what it is. Do not wing it, or you are the problem. And I'm trying to teach you here so that you are not the problem, right? For leads hiding in plain sight from past clients, let me just put a little pro tip in here on this too. You want to set up a systematic yearly gift program to solicit repeat and referred business, right? On the professional side, let's say, let me go to that first because I don't really have that tip in here, but since I brought it up. On the professional side, if you have probate attorneys, estates, wills, etc., you can put them on your market update newsletter, right? Which, by the way, if you've never seen it before, because it's first time here, I don't know how well you can see this when I'm in the small frame, but it looks like that, right? You could put all of those attorneys on that, and you could be mailing that to them on a regular basis, right? So that's what you could do for them and your clients. However, one thing that we do is we always personalize it attached to the closing date by sending something to them, chocolates, caramels, whatever we have in that rotation for that year. Let me show you how this works too. And so we send that to them to say, we didn't forget you. Happy property anniversary. And then once in a while, you get something back like this, right? You can see this little card here. Danny and Laura, thank you very much for sending us a 7-year acknowledgement of our home in Howardsport 7 years ago. Next to marrying Peter and having my 2 children, buying that house was the best decision we have ever made. We are grateful for your support and kindness through the process. By the way, she's referencing the gifts. So yummy. May the beauty of nature fill your heart with peace and joy throughout the year. Happy holidays, best, right? That's the pinnacle moment of a professionalized system. Now, the key is for Laura to pick up the phone and say, hey, this was so nice of you. By the way, we got a nice package of information for anybody, any friends or family thinking about buying or selling. We'd love to send them a package. Keep that in mind, right? And if you guys ever decide to sell that wonderful house, don't forget, we'd be happy to give you a package of information, right? So there you go. Voila. That is our topic for the night. Let me stop sharing that for a second and we'll get back over to the Zoom. And I would ask you to ask your questions. Again, like I said, sometimes you get a little shy to ask me a question. So what you can do is you can type it in the chat and I will deal with it that way. Okay. So either way that you want to do that. Or comments, whatever you might be. Don't let me off the hook so easily. It's the first class of 2025. So questions. Shoot, buddy. Go ahead. Yep. What I would do if I were you, I would get a list of them, okay, in Marietta, the greater area. And what I would do is get a list of them and make a mailing list of them. And then I would decide from like Quantum Digital, if you wanted to, because you could use quantumdigital.com to send one of these flyers. You could decide to send it once a quarter, every month, whatever your budget is. So start off by sending that. And I can work with you on that, Roberto. You can show me the template. We can look at it. But you can just start mailing it to them. And then you have a better reason to follow up. You're following up to say, hey, I've been sending you a copy of my market newsletter. I want to make sure you're getting it at your office, right? You can ask for the attorney, but just say, I want to make sure you've been getting this, right? And say, by the way, if you ever have anybody, even if you already have somebody that's your first choice for a realtor, I'd like to be your backup plan because I have a very clear package of information that we give to sellers before they have to make a commitment to us. I'd be happy to send you a sample package. May I do that? May I drop one off to you? Right? So try to go from the newsletter to dropping them a sample package. And you know, you don't have to really ask. You just tell them you're going to send them one if they talk to you, right? So list, sending the newsletter, making a phone call, and saying, I'd love to drop you off a sample package. And again, remember what kind of seller you're talking to. If it's a probate, make a probate package and say, this is a sample package, right? Cool. Good question. Yep, really good question because that's the tactical answer on how to do it correctly. Next question. What do we have out there? Look at all you shy. Oh, there you go. Good, buddy. How about you? Happy New Year. Nice to see you. Thank you. Sure. Yes, I'll explain that, what that means. You're in control of the commission. You establish the commission rate by making your offer and negotiating that with the seller. When you're a buyer's agent primarily, it's more difficult to do so, okay? Because you're going with your buyer, and now there's all this, depending on what MLS you are. Northwest MLS is not subjected to the National Association of Realtors, so I don't know whether they have still allowed an offer of compensation to be put in MLS, okay? So it's a little bit more of a precarious situation, Andre, when you make an offer. To me, what I say to you, just make the offer with whatever if it's 2.5% that you're after, you just put it in your offer. I don't really care what somebody else is offering me. However, the caveat is if you're doing internet buyer leads and they are below the median, you know that every house that you go to in Seattle is going to be competitive, right? And now let's say that that buyer's agent offer of fee is only 1%. So you're allowing that listing agent to make their 2.5%, and you're getting 1% for bringing the buyer because they're dictating what you can make. So you work for them. So isn't it logical to say, well, I don't want to be on that side of the ledger. I want to be on the listing side of the ledger, right? So I'm making the example extreme because now that there's this Wild West chaos with buyer agency fee and agents aren't really trained up well enough to negotiate fee. And in a hot market, it's tough to do. I'm saying go negotiate the listings, get the listings, right? Make these offers, follow up. So for example, in Boston, one of my higher end ones, I've been really doing a good job in this business that started off with an original expired listing, right? And I open house it to death. Half the people thought I lived there, right? So I ended up selling one in spite of a lawsuit. The young couple that saw me there all the time, they then had me in to compete. I won that one. And from an open house, I double-ended it. But I discounted myself down to 1% of the buy side. So my guy would take the deal quickly because I picked up an extra $34,000 because I double-ended it. I made my 2.5% on the front end, 87,000 or whatever it was, and picked up another $34,000 nearly on the other side. So in that case, I don't mind discounting myself because I'm double-ending the deal. But if I had to run around and I went to sell a 3.35 and the only offer I could get was 1%, it's still a wonderful payday. But now my buyer at 3.35 is off the table and I can't go make 2%, 2.5%, right? So it's when we talk about being a profitable real estate agent, I have to make you cognizant of that, right? I have to empower you to be in control of your own financial outcome. You just can't do it as well on the buy side as you can the sell side. Make sense? 100%. Controlling your own business model rather than working for the the seller agent who's making you a buyer offer, right? Which is bizarre, Andre, because it's the buyer's money who finances everybody. It's not the seller's money. When a check comes in to pay for the whole transaction, it's not the seller's money. It's the buyer's money. So why are we so beholden to what the seller's offering us, right? Who cares what you and your agent are offering us? It's my buyer's money. We're making an offer and it includes my fee of 2.5%. Who cares what you make? I don't care. Now, that's easy to do when the market's slow. That's very hard to do when the market's hot, right? Because they're like, yeah, we don't care, Andre. We're going to take the guy who's accepting the 1%. But that's less likely to happen at median and above. It's more likely to happen at median and below, which is why I preach stay right at that median if you can, right? Turnout, did you say? That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, I think that's a factor of somebody's motivation on either side of the ledger. You have a motivated seller, they want to do the right thing. It can be gone in a couple of weeks, right? If you don't, it's a grind, it's a longer period of time. But for me, I used to churn out, quote unquote, a lot more buyers, but that price and that commission rate were drifting that way. So yes, and in fact, I had this conversation with Duran, who's in the Seattle market, who I've been one-on-one coaching with for years, sort of having a debate about it. He goes, well, I made more money when I did a lot of transactions, churning out, and it was a lot of buy-side business. I think that opportunity has sailed because he could do back then a lot of internet buyer transactions. Now that's not so easy to do. So in that window, it might seem like that's a better business model, but how are you going to replicate it if that economic situation is not there? So yes, I've seen people like me too churn out way more deals, but I made way more money when I raised my average triple. I used to sell properties on an average about 350. So it would be great to say I did 68 deals in a year. I said on Craig Proctor's stage the first time, and everyone goes, ooh, ah. But at what price? So what if I walk in and I say I did a third of that, right? And I tripled the value. Who would you rather be? And the listings leverage my time too. So on a weekend, I can go be in 2 listings, potentially build my business with buyers, especially direct buyers and other listings, versus going out and showing 6 and 7 homes and being tied up for much longer than the hour and a half break, hour and a half, right? So it's a time leverage thing too. So it's a lifestyle decision. So a lot of factors there. Totally. Once you know the process, way more, less chaos because I know where I'm going this weekend. I can tell you the four addresses I'm going to. And I can tell you where, Melanie and her sister are going to be, doing an open house at a couple of them too, right? So I can, we're all just more streamlined, right? Totally. Totally. Yeah, Paul. Hmm. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Right. Right. Mhm. Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I'm double ending more and more of my listings, Andre, just because the time spent trying to sell the listing is in the house itself, right? So I mean, I'm thinking of a probate I double ended at 1.229. I'm thinking of one I double ended at 810. I'm thinking of one I double ended at 3.4. Melanie and her sister as a company, double end. They have one on the hook right now that I'm trying to close a gap of only $60,000. I'm close to that, so that would be a company double end. I have a double ended offer at 2.2 at the moment. It's not going to come together yet, but that's a tease at a really big number double end again. So I mean, if I have that listing inventory and then I just go sit it, I have that opportunity to do that, right? So it, yeah. Oh my gosh! If I looked at the web of where I have grown my business through open houses, my head pops off my shoulders. I, it's, yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. No, totally, totally. And we can go by case study. We can go one by one. And how did this one happen and what happened? We'll do that. But Andre, no, no, it's more just telling the story so they can see it's actually easy. Yeah. And Melanie, Melanie, open your mic, please, if you're still there. Hi. Yeah, you want to talk to these guys because I mean you're a rookie in this business, and you and your sister have been doing a great job of open housing it. And again, tell them though, even though the guy said I don't want you as a buyer agent, you still work with me, so it's not like we're going to throw away the complete buyer agency fee. If we have to take a discount, we do, but you're still going to make something. Tell them about that experience, right? Go ahead, tell them because it's why. Yeah. Yeah, and again, as a rookie, I mean, that hopefully some money is still on the table for it too, because it doesn't change our agreement, Andre. I mean, we still have our agreement that even though they didn't want buyer representation, the wife's an attorney, so sometimes you have to be careful because an attorney can be paid as a real estate agent, but they never ask for any fee. My client has asked me, well, are they direct to you? I said, no, they're direct. I've already couched that. And I said, no, they're direct to my agent. So, if we have to discount the buyer fee somewhat, we can, but I'm not going to go to zero for my buyer agents. So I said that to my own client, right? So that's how we try to keep this moving. Have to sell the house and still in an awkward situation where there's not a clear, hey, we'll do this. I have kept Melanie and her sister involved, and they have been the ones that gave the analysis, right? But at some point in time, too many cooks in the kitchen. Laura and I have been, handling the back and forth because we had to ask the buyer for patience, stay in there, hang in there. We're getting closer. And they're the only ones that have gotten like $100,000 off counter. Nobody else has. Everybody else either got full price or 50 grand. So it's a real live deal. As we're sitting here tonight coaching this is it. And it is a lead that they got from an open house, right? That's how it works. So it's happening to us more and more, not just me, but as a company. And I've already talked about Annabelle over time has picked up other listings and buyers from my listings where she open housed them and ran them like a storefront, right? So there's a little anecdote. All right. Thoughts for final questions here. Anybody else have one more before we call it a night? Sure. Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. You ready? You ready? I wouldn't waste my money is the answer. No, not a chance. That's a lot of money thrown out there. No way. Because you would have to be a really good direct copywriter, and we could drive them back to where? To your phone? They'll never call. It's not going to happen because what it is, it's reactive marketing, right? It's old school reactive marketing. It's throwaway money, right? It's like you might as well throw $800 in a fire and turn it on. At least you'll be warm, right? So no, just keep executing the plan you're executing, right? Because it's going to be more so those resources are eventually going to be used to buy packages or spend your time printing here or whatever and following up. It just stick to the yellow brick system. I can protect you from wasting money. So I forgot to reply to you. I'm like, oh hell no. But I did, because I didn't want to just type that and not tell you why. It's just the expectations. Wiano Golf Club, do you know how many top agents go to Wiano Golf Club? Jack Cott, Joni Witter. You got no chance at getting a member at Wiano Golf Club to come to you unless you call them, you talk to them. None, zero. So it's a complete cash burn, right? Cool. Good. Yeah. No, good question. I loved it. I forgot to type in the answer though, because I wanted to say it to you instead. So I explained it. Well, because otherwise it sounds like a random wet blanket, but that's why we have a system. And I told you, and you're already close to maybe, right? And it didn't take that long to get a maybe. So what do? Keep executing that same plan. Yep. Yep. You're welcome. All right, gang, that'll do it for tonight. Appreciate you here. We'll be back next week too with another episode. But love doing these, and I love it when you guys come live. It's so much more interesting to me to teach live. All right. Have a good night. See you later.